Hi, welcome back to my channel. As I mentioned, I had to stop my other video because I wasn't going to tell you about all of the books that I read in May, but I started talking about them and remembering them, and my video ran into 45 minutes. So this will be part 2 of my May wrap-up. And in case you don't catch part 1, I'll give you the stats again. I read 45 books, which were 10 audiobooks and 35 ebooks. My total number of pages read for May was 16,472. That came up to an average of 366 pages per book, or 531 pages per day, and that was at a rate of a book and a half a day. So I'm repeating those stats just in case you're just catching this as video number 2. So I will name the other video May Wrap Up number 1, and this will be May Wrap Up number 2. I'll probably use the same, I may or may not use the same thumbnails. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I'll figure that out. But let's just jump right into it. In my previous video, I want to tell you how many books I talked about. I can tell you in 1 second as soon as I get back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 22. I talked about 23 of the 45 books that I read. So picking up from the 23rd book, I am picking up with J.D. Robb's Forgotten in Death. Now, Forgotten in Death, I believe, comes out in October. I'm trying to bring it up. Nope, it comes out September 7th. I read it, when did I read this book? May 15th. And I love it, and I actually didn't get this book for review. I have a lot of contacts at publisher companies, so I wrote the publishers and I said, please give me this book, and of course they did, because that's the way they are. It's number 53 in the In-Depth series. I love it. I will be getting the next book, and it's Eve Dallas at her best. And basically, somebody wants to open up a new business or something along that line, and as they want to do that, they start the demolition, and they find a body in the wall. And of course, Rourke, her husband, the billionaire, owns this property or this building, so they both become involved in this murder case. And if you are following the J.D. Robb In-Depth series by J.D. Robb, or her actual name is Nora Roberts, I highly recommend that book. I loved it, loved it, loved it. Then I had this book called Flight for review, the audiobook. But Flight is the Texas Murder Files number 2. So I read, or I listened to Laura Griffin's book Hidden, which is the Texas Murder Files number 1. Now, I thought they are a series, but the primary characters are not connected. So in the first book, which was Hidden, and I pulled them up out of order, so let me get Hidden first. In this one, the couple, they're romantic suspense. So in this one, you have Bailey and Jacob Merritt, and he's the lead detective, and Bailey is an investigative reporter who also gets assigned with Jacob Merritt's unit at the police station. So she's more than an investigative reporter. She will be reporting on crimes from the inside. She won't just be going up to crime scenes and reporting on them, but she'll get the inside take. So that's that book, Hidden. And then I had Flight by Laura Griffin, which I put in the wrong order, but it's not important. No, I have not yet in this review, but basically it's another romantic suspense. And not only did other people not like the narrator, I didn't like the narrator, my friend Fashawn didn't like the narrator, and I'm going to tell you why this narrator was a problem for me. I listened to The Bachelor and Who Wants to Marry a Duke by Sabrina Jeffries as audiobooks. I listened to Shonda Rhimes' book as an audiobook. I listened to maybe a couple other books as audiobooks. Okay, so by the time I got to Hidden and Flight by Laura Griffin, this author reads almost, this narrator kind of reads almost on a monotone. And I was surprised. I don't remember the narrator's name, but I was really surprised at the volume of books that she's read for Audible. She's a very, very popular reader. But anyway, good romantic suspense. I think I gave it 3 stars. Then I read, oh my goodness, CRISS and Deadly Cross by James Patterson. I say oh my goodness because I love the narrator. I can't think of her name. Let me see if I can rush over to Audible to give you an idea of who the narrator is. I should, I think it might be January Lavoie. No. January Lavoie does the other one. No, it's not January Lavoie. I don't know. I can't tell you. But all I know is it's a guy. That's all I can tell you. But it's great. It's a great narrator. And I totally lost my Goodreads page. Let's get it back. I got excited when I wanted to tell you about the narrator. Let's see if we can. Okay, there we go. This is Alex Cross's 27th and 28th books, and the this is James Patterson's Alex Cross books 27 and 28. Again, they were CRISS and Deadly Cross. Loved them. If you have been following the Alex Cross series from the beginning, you won't be disappointed. This book was really hard. There was an emotional punch to this book. That's all I'll say. Anyway, we're going to move on to another James Patterson book, which was 21st Birthday. It's James Patterson and Maxine Pietro, and I think this is the one by January Lavoie is the narrator. I love this book. In April, I read from 10 to 20. I just binge read 10 of those books because I had fallen behind in the series. And now I got caught up with the 21st Birthday, which is really good because Claire is coming back after some medical issues, and the girls are together solving crimes like they have all along. The next book I read for May was Such a Good Wife by Serafina Nova Glass. I have not yet written the book review, but it was a psychological thriller, and it was about a woman who was a caregiver to her mother-in-law. Let's see, why am I having a hard time? Okay. She is happily married. Her mother-in-law lives with them, but she is completely dependent on her care. Her name is Melanie Hale. She has 2 teenagers. They're pretty selfish teenagers. And she has a husband who, as far as she's concerned, I hate to use this as an illustration, but she's just another piece of paper to him. She's just another piece of junk mail to him. That's the best way I could describe her husband. So anyway, that's her happy marriage or her happy family life. Well, she wants to be a writer, so she goes to this writing seminar and she sees this writers group, the person that's running this group, and he's a local author named Luke, and she has an affair with him. And now she's leaving this perfect life, and then Luke is killed. So guess who's one of the suspects? That's all I'll tell you about that. Such a Good Wife. Really good book. What did I give it for stars? I gave it 4 stars. I had to look back, because I have not updated my challenge group page on Goodreads, so I have to kind of flip back and forth. This next book I want to tell you about, This Other Island. Oh my gosh, what a good book. This Other Island was by Stephanie Edward. And now I want to go back into my reads for a minute here. Remember how I said New Girl in Little Cove, the one that was, if you saw video number 1 for the May reads, I talked about in the New Girl by Little Cove by Dominique Monaghan, they used the Patois, or not the Patois, but the dialect of the Newfoundland population. Well, in this book here, in the book cover is up there, or it will be when I edit this, This Other Island, well, this was about a girl who lost her family for one reason or another, and she finds herself living with her father. I think it's the Bahamas, or is it, oh my gosh. I don't know if I want to say Jamaica or the Bahamas, but I can't tell you. But the thing is, she goes to live with her father, and then something happens to her father, so then she goes back to her mother or to her aunt. And I'm going to leave that little quill of a confusion in the air for a specific reason. Now, there were a lot of secrets that surrounded her, and should I tell you her name? Maybe that would help if I would tell you. Her name is Yvette. But the reason that I brought up the other book is because there's a lot of dialect in this book, and I just love the dialect. I mean, I only gave it 4 stars, only because sometimes when you're reading books that have a specific dialect or a patois or a certain accent that comes through the pages of the book, it can be a little chunky and a little hard to read. But I think it was a great book, and I'm almost positive that this review is written. So I'm just gonna, I have to cheat. I have to go to my blog. As soon as I started talking about something, it dawned on me. So I've got to pull up my May. I know I wrote this book review. Why it's not on Goodreads is beyond me. This other island. Let's see. Yes, I did. Okay. I'm glad that I wrote the review because I think this book was really good. But like I said, I gave it 4 stars. And the reason that I wanted to bring up this review is because it dealt with the subject of identity and what Yvette experienced with her father. And now that I pulled it up, I can tell you that she went to the Caribbean, which is where she went, where her father lived, and then back to London, and how their 2 lives were so different. It was like 2 sides of a coin, and how the past was connected to the present. And I really recommend it. And like I said, my only thing was the language, the dialogue. And so it was a little broken because it was St. Lucia. That's where the book was, the setting was. But I still think it was a fabulous book, and I really recommend it. So I just had to pull that up on my blog because I really wanted to tell you about it. I'm already excited, and I haven't told you why. I read Pug Actually, and Pug Actually, I haven't written the review yet, but it's by Matt Dunn. Why did I clap? Okay, I tell you about this emotional story about identity and a woman's journey, and then I get all excited 2 seconds later or a section later, because Pug Actually was written in the viewpoint of the dog, a matchmaker. So the whole love story was from the dog's mind. That's all I'm going to tell you. I think actually I'm going to write this review and make a video review of this. I have to. I loved it. Pug Actually. Keep that in mind. Then we have The Guest List by Lucy Foley. This wasn't a blog tour book or a review title. It was simply a book that I read because it was part of a challenge it was a group read, I believe, or something, for May, for one of the groups, I think Reading Rivalry or something. So basically we have a bride, a best man, +1, and a dead body. Oh, we got a wedding planner. So everybody's gathered on an island in the coast of Ireland, and they're going to get together for this wedding. But then a murder happens. So shift from the excitement of the wedding, and now you've got not only a murder, but how do I put it? Because I don't want to put any spoilers in. You have something happening. It's almost like a locked room situation, because you have a small group of people on an island. So you know one of them is a murderer. So I was kind of like fumbling a little bit because I don't want to put in any spoilers. I don't want to put in any spoilers in any review I do. Then I am reading this series. This was the 3rd book, and I think I've read did I get the 4th book read? I don't think I got to the 4th book yet. This is the Romance Book Club series, number 3, Crazy Stupid Romance. I think I have the 4th book coming up sometime in June, so I had to hurry up and read that. I did read 1 and 2, but I hadn't read this one, even though this one came out in October of last year. And this one is Alexis Carlisle, in her love story with her best friend Noah Logan. The first part of the book is she's in love with him and he's in love with her, but they both respect their friendship so much that they don't want to tell each other. But they're always together in the course of work and things going on, but it's completely platonic. The question is, when does it change? And what does the Bromance Book Club have to do with it changing? Keep that in mind. Oh, why am I saying that? Because I heard it in a live stream yesterday. What does the Bromance Book Club have to do with this potential love story? Loved it. I love the best friend trope. I do. I am one who has a hard time understanding platonic friendships between men and women. Sorry for that naive thought. Forgive me. Don't jump on me for that naive thought. But in this case, we see that the platonic romance went out the window. Then I read another psychological thriller, and this was Where I Left Her by Amber Garza. And I've got to get the review written. This comes out this doesn't come out until August 24th. I'm not sure why. Oh, I know why I read it, because I thought it was coming out May 24th, so I hurried up and read it. So it doesn't come out till August 24th. So that's for a blog tour, but I am going to get the review written after, I had mentioned in video number 1 that I want to write 5 reviews a day until I catch up. And by the way, let me stop for a second. In the first video in this series of May reads, I showed this traveler's notebook and all of these reviews that I have to write. I mean, I have a lot of reviews to write. So this is one of them. What was so good about this book? Well, a woman drops her daughter Amelia off to her friend Lauren's house. Now, if Whitney had followed her gut, she would have spoke to Lauren's mother before dropping her daughter off. And number 2, she would have at least walked her daughter to the door. But her daughter is a teenager, and she's like, no, Ma, I'm good. And no, she didn't say it like that, but you can imagine. Well, let's just say that was the last time she saw her daughter. So that's the plot behind that book. Really, 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 really good book. Now, excuse me, coffee gave me indigestion. I also have another August book, Stronger Than You Know by Lori Foster. I know I'm on the street team, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be a blog tour. I got to check. And I know I don't need this book now, but I wrote the publicist and said, can I have it now, please? Because I love Lori Foster. She's probably my favorite author. So yes, they gave me the book a day or two earlier than I would have gotten it anyway. So I read it that same day that I got it. It's the Mackenzie's Ridge Trail #2 book. I think based on the way this book is written, it's probably going to be a trilogy, and I already can imagine who's going to be the book for the third book. But the first book was No Holding Back. I loved it. This one is Reyes Mackenzie's book, and basically he teaches self-defense, and he meets somebody named Kennedy Brooks who joins his gym, and she has what's the word? I want to think of a good word. I want to say an endeavor is a very, very mild word, but she has like a thing that she's doing to help a certain population of women. And I don't want to give you spoilers. And he has something that's going on, and they end up finding out that what they do to help a certain population of women is connected. And so it's a romantic suspense at its best. I adore Lori Foster's books. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Okay, what's next? Invisible. The Invisible Husband of Frick Island. This was so cute. A woman loses her husband. Her name is Piper Parrish. Okay, she's on this island, and I can't remember exactly what the island is off of, and a reporter or a blogger, a journalist, whatever have you, goes to the island because there's a potential story. But when he gets there, everybody's like, say hi to Tom. This is Tom. Say hi to Tom. Well, who's Tom? Well, Piper Parrish was happily married to Tom, and Tom has died. But everybody, including Piper, especially Piper, is acting like Tom is still alive. Cute, cute story. The question is Piper out of her mind? Is she Looney Tunes? Now, I'm going to give you a wee bit of a spoiler. It's women's fiction / romance. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say nothing else about it. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Then I had a waterfront wedding for review. So it was, I think, let's see if it was, I believe it was, let's find it. I lost it. Was it the second? Okay. It was the third, I gotta see if it was a second. I think it was the third book in the series. Okay. Last year I read A Simple Wedding. And for review, I had a waterfront wedding, and I am a series fanatic. So if there's a connected book, I'm going to find it and read it. So in order to read it, I had to read A Cottage Wedding and then a waterfront wedding. No, I don't have to, but that's just the way I do it. These are both very, very sweet love stories, but they also had, each of them had a bit of a mystery. I wouldn't call them romantic suspense, because if you judge a book by its cover, and I'm going to have both of those covers up here right now, it looks like just a sweet old-fashioned love story, but it's a bit more than that. So those are really, really good books. I gave them both 5 stars. I loved them. So in this book by Lara Bazelon, and see, this is hard when you have 2 books of the same title in the same month. This one here was about 2 mothers involved in a murder and a court case. Okay, so I'm gonna fix this up. Let's act like that never happened. In this case, a woman had killed her husband, and she claims it was not only in self-defense but to protect their young daughter, their baby daughter. Then there was another woman, a soldier, who was on maternity leave, but she was determined to take on this case before her maternity leave was up. Which of them was the good mother? Totally different than the other book in the first part of this 2-part summary. But in this case, this I gave 4 stars. I could have given it 3. I'm not really crazy about the ending. I'm not crazy about it at all. I have not yet written the review, so I wouldn't be surprised if I drop a star when I actually write the review. So, to reiterate, if you saw the first part of the video, that summary and that book cover will go up. And when you see this part of the video, this summary that I just gave you and this book cover will go up, even though they're the same name. I cannot believe how my moods are affected by what I read, because I am that disturbed. Okay, I am that disturbed. I am really that disturbed at thinking about a good mother. I really am. Lara Bazelon's book. Just thinking about it makes me want to drop a star right now. Okay, I have to edit in a video for mix-up of titles and author's name, and I felt it was only fair for me to give the author's correct name in this video, or at least in this book review, I should say. Basically, I read 2 books called A Good Mother. One was by Lara Bazelon and one was by Sam Hepburn. So the book I discussed just before this is by Lara Bazelon, and now I'm going to discuss A Good Mother by Sam Hepburn. Now, when I made the video number 1 in this 2-part video, I believe I had the wrong book cover up or something, so I edited that out, and that video is completely intact, and now I've got to edit this into this video, so I apologize for that. I really do. Anyway, in this book here we have Nicola, who's seemingly in an ideal marriage. She's married to a successful dentist named Ian, and they have a young son named Finn, and she's done all her best to provide Finn a good home and she's done good in her marriage. Well, as it turns out, things are not what they seem. As a matter of fact, Ian had a level of control and verbal abuse that was higher than I have read in a book in a long time. As a matter of fact, it was so triggering, it was so intense that I was of two minds. The first thought is, okay, I'm putting this book down. There's no way I can finish it. And then as I continued to read it, however, then I had a lump in my throat and I felt so drawn to Nikki, the wife. And so I'll tell you about them. And I don't know, like I said, I was ready to put the book down more than once. But then I decided to give it another go, and that was after about maybe 15 or 20%. And so what I did was I started trying to put myself in the mind of Nikki and to take Ian and put him over there. And as I was doing this, as I was drawing closer to the character, I understood what Nikki was doing in order to keep a home safe and happy for their son, Finn. However, the story shifts a little bit to the past. And when it goes into the past, it shows how troubled Nikki, her name is Nicola, but she's called Nikki in the book, how troubled her childhood was, and how she drew close to one of the people when she was in the care system. Like, it was a different country, but it was a foster care type situation, so she did draw close to one of the other people there. Well, now it's years later, and Donna knocks on Nikki's door, and Nikki is like, what are you doing here? You have to leave. You can't come in. Well, that's the drama that kept me pinned to the rest of this book. Because as we get our appetites wet with the heavy atmosphere between Nicola or Nikki and Ian, we get a shift to the past and we see Nikki's childhood, but then we get a shift back to the present with Donna. And so you got to try to tie in all of these scenarios. Now, while all this is happening, Nikki is consistently and constantly, without a break, being gaslighted by Ian. And then if you add in what Ian is doing to her and the fact that Donna, whoever this Donna character is, has returned to her life, what strange things begin happening to Nikki. And she starts to feel like she's being watched. And so why does Nikki feel this way? What happened in her past that is possibly threatening her present and her future? And how is any of that going to be resolved? Now, it's definitely a page turner. I really had to know the outcome. I'm sorry about this cat. I really had to know the outcome. I really did. I was very, very, very drawn to Nikki as to try to see how she could possibly get out of this difficult situation, this marriage that was dark and dank and didn't offer any hope, and then how she could resolve her past with what's going on with her present. And I will tell you something, the twists were rather shocking. They really were. The ending was even more shocking than the twist, and the conclusion made the whole journey worth the effort. So, like I said, when I made both of the videos, up until now, I realized I kept putting myself in mind of A Good Mother by Bazelon, which was basically about a woman who had killed her husband and the lawyer that is hearing her helping her in her case. But yet my brain still wanted to mix up these characters with yet another psychological thriller. So I just thought it was only fair to make this quick video, and I'm going to edit it in with the other ones, throw the book cover up there, and get this video posted. All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Then we're going to move on to Going Greek. Oh, thank goodness, something happy. Let's talk about something happy for a minute. Okay, let's find it first of all. Where's the cover? Okay, Sue Roberts. This was so cute. Another cute story. Loved it. Romantic comedy. It was about a woman who was having some real, I want to say social, but we'll say professional problems. She was a TV personality, and she made a disastrous dating choice that put her in the eyes of the paparazzi. So because of that, she takes off and goes to Greece to visit with her sister, her husband, and I think just her niece. I think there might be just one little child. And that gets her away from all the news hounds for this dating mistake. I'm not going to show you what she did. And she sees this example of a happy marriage with her sister and brother-in-law. So part of the story is she's wishing she could find a mate, and she gets some opportunities for love because it is a romantic comedy, but you'll have to see which direction she turns in the story. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm very, very affected by my books because I was so broken by reading A Good Mother that when I got to Going Greek, it was able for me to regroup and to get back, what's on my lip? To get back in the good frame of mind. So you're going to love A Good Mother if you want to read that. In The Marriage Lie, we have a woman whose life seems to be on track. She's happy. Everything about her life is going the way that it should. And her husband says, I want a divorce, okay? And the way he goes about it is really, really awful. He takes her to a restaurant for her birthday. It's beautiful. They have a 14-year-old daughter who's off at a school event, and it's just the two of them. And then he says, let's go home. But when they're driving, she's like, we're not going in the right direction. He's like, it's okay. So he takes her to a gated community, which he has entrance to, and she's a little confused there. And then they get to a house, and he has keys to that house, and she's even more confused. And then he's walking around the house with her. What do you think of that painting? What do you think of that sofa? What do you think of this bedroom? And she's wondering why he cares so much about what she thinks. Well, he tells her this because he plans on divorcing her with a huge ultimatum. We're going to get a divorce. You're going to live here, and I'm taking custody of our daughter. Full custody. Now, there's a side story that involves her mother and stepfather, but it also involves someone from her past. Now, the ultimatum that Rob gives her is one where he says, if you don't accept the divorce on these terms and me taking custody of our daughter, I'm going to expose a secret that you've been hiding for years. Okay? That's The Marriage Lie. Okay. The next book I read was The Marriage Lie by K.L. Slater. Now, I think I read 2 books by Slater. Yes, I did. Not The Marriage Lie. The Marriage Lie was Ali Mercer. The book by K.L. Slater, whoops, I brought up a book from last month. Let's get back up to this month. In the Marriage, and yeah, I have to bring it up because there's so many books here. We have a couple where their son Jesse had been murdered, and she never let her son leave her mind. And what am I trying to find here? Oh, sorry. A woman's son had been murdered, okay? But the very first book, a chapter, or even the prologue, is she's about to get married. But who is she going to marry? Her son's killer. Yeah. The man who killed her son, she's about to marry. Yes, I did have to read the summary for about 3 sentences before it popped back into memory. My goodness gracious. This book was multi-layered. I love K.L. Slater's book. Her name is Kim Slater. I love her books. I love her books. This book was right up there with being one of the best books I read in May, although I did have to look at the summary. Why did this woman marry her son's killer? What made this book a psychological thriller? And who had what motive as to what happened? And then last but not least, what is the thread? Like, if you pull this thread out, you're going to ruin the whole story. So what was the thread that held everything together? Oh my gosh. Good book. Then I read, immediately after that, I read The Evidence by K.L. Slater. And in this book, yes, I have to look this up for a second. Okay, in this book, a woman killed her husband, and she's in prison serving a life sentence, never going to get out, at least at this point in her life. And then there's a journalist named Esme who wants to interview the woman because the woman claims that she killed her husband because of, if she didn't kill him, he would have killed her or their son. And she starts talking about the psychological and even physical abuse that she suffered at the hands of her husband, which is what led to his murder. Then we have Esme, who's interviewing her, and what Esme is experiencing in her personal life, but also how involved she gets in to Simone, who is in prison for killing her husband. It's another psychological thriller by K.L. Slater, and it was really good because there's one character, and I have to think for a minute because I don't want to do a spoiler. There's one character who does not want Simone's story being told. But if Simone's story is told, everything could change. And that's all I want to say, because I think that might even be too much. I'm just going to stop there. Really good book by Kim Slater, K.L. Slater. You're going to want to read it. The next book for this video is The Vacation by M.M. Chouinard. Now, in this book, you have a group of people who went on vacation, and sadly, a 3-year-old goes missing. And we start to read a book that has a handful of characters, each with its own story, and each with a certain layer of secrecy, deceit, lies, and even more. And at the crux of it all, the missing 3-year-old child. Very intense story. I was a little broken by this book. I really was, because you always want a happy ending, but we don't always get the happy ending. But it was a good book. I think the review might be written. I may not just have gotten it up on Goodreads yet. Now, this book was the last book I read in May, and it was The Moon Over Kilmore Quay. I love this book. Oh my gosh, 5 stars going to this one. Now, this one here, we have a woman who grew up in the Irish community, and she always heard stories of home. And she starts to read a letter that she wrote when I think she was about 10 years old. And it was a class project for a time capsule. So now the time capsule is open, and she's reading this letter, and it brings her to Kilmore Quay in Ireland. And we start to see her life in a different light from what she had been living, based on the letter she wrote to herself when she was younger. This was a touching, emotional story. I'm not going to say what I was going to say because I don't want it to be a spoiler, but it was a very touching, emotional story that made me cry. I just leave it at that. So, 40 minutes in, I've got to make a couple of a couple of edits, so the video might be a little shorter than 40 minutes at this point when I get to fixing some mistakes I made. But I do want to tell you about June. Okay, June so far, today is June 8th. I have read 7 books in total, so that brings me up to 238 books for 2021, and it might be more than 238. And so for June, I've read 2,382 pages at 343 pages per book, and only a book a day. However, I am reading 2 books, and I want to tell you about those 2 books because it could be 9 books, but I'm going to bring up my spreadsheet. One book is, I can't think of the name of it. The Tree. No, I want to. Oh, give me a second. Oh yeah, I've read 247 books, not 238. I'm reading The Rooftop Party, so I got to get back to that. But I'm also reading The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Now, I'm reading this with a group of people, and we're reading about 80 pages a day. So I could finish it at any point, but it's a month-long group project. So that's The Pillars of the Earth. I don't know if we're going to read the other books in the series, but I'm reading that. And I'm also reading The Rooftop Party. And as I mentioned, I read 7 other books, and I will talk about all 7 of those books at the end of June or early July when I do my June wrap-up. But I had mentioned in video number 1 that I would touch base with you as to what I've done in June so far. I also said in video number 1 that I have a lot of catching up to do, so I don't anticipate reading any more than a book a day this month because I'm going to focus on catching up on book reviews. So, plus my diamond painting. So I want to really get caught up on both. So therefore, I won't be getting as many books read in June, but when I get to the end of the month or the beginning of next month, I will tell you everything that I've read because I've already read some good books. The Stepsisters was really, really good. Murder at the Helm House by Helena Dixon was good. Summer in the Scottish Highlands by Donna Ashcroft was good. The Edelweiss Sisters, oh my goodness. So I've read some good books already this month, and I can't wait to tell you about them. So now I've got a lot of editing to do, and I mean a lot of editing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and fix a couple of mistakes that I've made, and I want to thank you for your patience. Both videos are rather long. I hope that you're able to stay with them from beginning to end. I'm not going to tell you about my TBR for June because it's just too much time on this video already, but I want to thank you for your time. Bye-bye.